So the Osundairo brothers, the two brothers who helped Jussie Smollett stage a fake, racist, and homophobic attack on himself, are now suing Jussie Smollett's attorneys personally for defamation. This story is the vlog that just keeps on vlogging. Yes, I'm at a McDonald's playground funhouse. Alright, for those of you who have been living under a rock, a little while ago, Jussie Smollett claimed that he was a victim of an attack perpetrated against him by two white males wearing Make America Great hats. He claimed that the attack was racist and homophobic, and the Chicago police launched a month-long investigation to determine who did it. Plot twist, it turns out that Jussie Smollett paid two of his friends to stage the attack, and his two friends, who are also brothers, testified before a grand jury confirming that it was all a staged... Oh god, that hurts. No, this isn't gonna work. This is confusing and distracting and annoying even to me. One kid's at a play date, the other kid's asleep in the back, so we can do this quietly and properly in the car. We have to fully appreciate the multiple layers of insanity to this entire situation. Jussie Smollett claimed to have been the victim of a racist and homophobic hate crime perpetrated against him by two white men. After an extensive investigation by the Chicago Police Department, it turns out that Jussie Smollett paid two of his friends, the Osundairo brothers, $3,500 to stage the attack. Apparently, the Chicago Police Department came up with proof of payment, text messages, phone records. Smollett was hanging out with the Osundairo brothers the night of the event. The Osundairo brothers give testimony before a grand jury confirming that Jussie Smollett paid them so that they would stage a fake racist and homophobic hate crime against Jussie Smollett because Smollett was afraid he was going to lose his place on Empire and that this would garner sympathy so that he couldn't be cut from the show. The Chicago Police Department indicts Jussie Smollett on having provided a fake police report. The prosecuting attorney then drops all charges against Jussie Smollett, ostensibly under the guise of what they refer to as a pre-trial diversion program, which is basically a way of finding a non-criminal resolution to a first-time non-violent offense. I did a video on this previously, check it out, I'll link it right here. A lot of people in the comment section of that video were pointing out that this was apparently not Jussie Smollett's first-time offense, that in 2007 or 2009 he was pulled over for DUI or something along those lines. Regardless, I don't know about that, but I did a video explaining how it was, at the very least in law, that all charges against Jussie Smollett were dropped. Add another layer of crazy to this already crazy story. After all the charges are dropped against Jussie Smollett, he and his lawyers take to the offensive, reaffirming that he was in fact the victim of a racist and homophobic hate crime, suggesting that the Osundairo brothers were actually dressed in whiteface when they perpetrated this crime against Jussie Smollett. Jussie Smollett, through his attorneys, sticking to his story that he was in fact the victim of a racist and homophobic hate crime, and reaffirming that the Osundairo brothers were in fact the ones that perpetrated it, not in conspiracy with Smollett, but on their own. So you have Jussie Smollett, through his attorneys, basically calling the Osundairo brothers not conspirators, but perpetrators of a racist and homophobic hate crime. And then add the cherry to the top of this insane ice cream cake. That is a very weird description. The Osundairo brothers file a civil lawsuit for defamation, not against Jussie Smollett,
but against his attorneys.
They filed a defamation lawsuit against the attorneys for things they said during a press conference in which they reiterated the innocence of Jussie Smollett and the culpability not of conspiracy to commit the crime, but of having actually committed the racist and homophobic hate crime against Jussie Smollett. That is the fact pattern to the situation, and it actually brings up some very interesting legal questions. I've done a number of videos on defamation, the criteria for proving a lawsuit in defamation. I did one video about whether or not PewDiePie could sue The Verge or Vox for defamation for things that they wrote about him in the past. Check that video out right here. But this is next level legal questions. And the question in this is, can you sue the attorneys for things they said for and on behalf of their client? Now, I don't know who is representing the Osundairo brothers, but going after the lawyers personally for defamation is next level, Hail Mary, long shot, what's another sports analogy? You know what I mean. There is a concept that is generally known as litigation privilege. The terminology may differ from one jurisdiction to another, but generally speaking, lawyers are granted pretty much absolute immunity for acts they carry out for and on behalf of their clients. Lawyers are agents for their clients. They are not acting for themselves. And can you imagine a world in which lawyers would get sued for defamation for representing their clients who may say things about the opposing party that may turn out to be false. You would live in a world where lawyers would never represent any client for fear of facing a lawsuit for defamation for having said things for and on behalf of their client against their adversary. Litigation privilege, absolute privilege, immunity, the terminology will vary by jurisdiction, but the concept, generally speaking, will remain the same in common law jurisdictions. And that's not to say that it's impossible to sue a lawyer for defamation. It's just to say that when a lawyer is representing their client, generally speaking, they benefit from litigation privilege, whereby they will not be held personally liable for things they've said in the context of a litigation, in front of a court, or while they're representing a client. That said, there are some jurisdictional gray zones, as in, what if a lawyer says something before litigation has actually arisen? What if there is no imminent or pending litigation between the parties, and a lawyer representing their client holds a press conference where they level all sorts of defamatory, false accusations against the other party? In theory, if what they said constitutes defamation, potentially there can be a lawsuit against the attorneys. There are in fact limits to litigation privilege or absolute privilege, and the courts are very strict in applying the rule to statements made in the context of judicial proceedings before the courts. They are a little more lenient in terms of lifting litigation privilege in terms of statements that are made in the general public during press conferences, not in the context of actual imminent or pending litigation. Not in the context of actual imminent or pending litigation. Alright, it's always when I put the video together afterwards that I realize I forgot to mention certain things. Limits to the exception of absolute privilege, whereby somebody can actually sue a lawyer for defamation. Third parties who are not involved in litigation, who are defamed by the comments of an attorney, can in theory sue that attorney for defamation. The idea being that they are an uninterested third party to proceedings. They don't have a reasonable expectation of being defamed by public statements of the attorney representing one party or the other. Oh. Another exception is where an attorney makes defamatory statements, but there is no reasonable or actual anticipated litigation in the works. And in those types of situations, you can actually go from what is absolute privilege to what is qualified as relative privilege, whereby the defense of the attorney is going to be that I thought or had the reasonable suspicion that when I was saying these things, litigation was going to come. Or that I thought when I made these statements were going to be relevant to proceedings that were in the works. The idea there being that if someone makes defamatory statements, even if it's in the context of litigation or leading up to litigation, if those statements are absolutely irrelevant to the actual litigation between the parties, it can therefore be defamatory, and there can be an exception to the otherwise absolute privilege of an attorney representing a client. Okay, I think that's clear enough. Let's get back to the video. And just to refresh our memories as to what constitutes defamation, it has to be a statement that is false, that tarnishes the reputation of the person against whom the statement is made. A real question that's going to be interesting to ask if this actually ever gets to trial is what damage to the reputation of the Osundairo brothers did the statements made by Geragos and Glandian actually cause? And bear this in mind, the Osundairo brothers are admitted hoaxers. They admitted to having fabricated a fake racist and homophobic hate crime against Smollett. And can you imagine pleading this in front of a judge? Yes, Your Honor, I am an admitted participant in a fake racist and homophobic hate crime, but I am not a racist and a homophobe, and by them having said what they said, they tarnished my reputation, which was only that of a hoaxer, but not that of a racist and a homophobe. And incidentally, for those of you who don't know me, I am Viva Frei, a Montreal litigator turned YouTuber. I do these things called law vlogs, where we analyze, dissect, and break down something that's going on in the news from a legal perspective in terms that can be understood by lawyers and non-lawyers alike. All that to say, it's going to be super interesting to follow this on two fronts. One, can they sue the lawyers for defamation for statements made for and on behalf of their client? And two, can they purport to have suffered damages resulting from the defamation to the extent that their reputations were already damaged as a result of their own conduct? If you like this video and you like my content, like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, tell your friends, tell your family, help me grow my channel. If you have any suggestions, tweet me, direct message me. I try to get to as many messages as I can, and I will certainly be following this story to the end because every aspect of this drama from beginning to end has been fascinating to watch from a legal perspective. And the most important thing?
Now you know your vlog. Peace out.
Boom!